Time travel made possible, Pennsylvania and Georgia. Traveling through time is a lot of work. We here at Liber-tea take the best parts of time travel and give them some form and depth. Learning about the settling of 13 colonies and the influence of Native Americans during this time helps us, in part, learn more about ourselves today. Like, subscribe, comment, and share these time travel influences from Liber-tea that give us many advantages of what we could mine for ourselves today, but also a few smiles along the way. Here in this video, we find two settlements, Pennsylvania and Georgia. The history of Pennsylvania might be one of the most well-known. Follow along and see how many facts, figures, and gems you know alongside Liber-tea. Can anyone guess who the founding father of Pennsylvania was? All those who guessed Mr. William Penn are correct. Penn was born in London with the high upper-class status of an admiral. He was afforded many opportunities that his new settlement contemporaries were not afforded, including a prominent social status and top-notch education. However, he completely surprised everyone around him when he converted to the Society of Friends, or the Quakers, which at the time were a persecuted group of religious people. Actually, he used his notable status and great wealth to further the cause and shield his fellow converts. Despite all of the unpopularity of his converted sect, he found social favor with the Duke of York, who later became more commonly known as King James II. So what are the Quakers known for? The most prevalent parts of this religious movement was for the ending of all slavery. They believed that all humans deserved the same amount of respect and dignity, and no human was inferior. This also led to their ardent fight for women's rights as well. They were champions of fair and comparable opportunities for education, humane treatment of prisoners, the mentally ill, and any perceived weaker among society. They established several mental health institutions and were best known for their unwavering stance against war, their motto being to always try to live in the life and power which takes away all occasion for war. Peaceful negotiations and resolutions were always superior measures relative to violent reactions. Even though Penn was given all the land in Pennsylvania by King James II, as a Quaker, his conscience would not allow him to touch any of these claims without first buying the land from the Native Americans who lived there. To this end, all of modern Pennsylvania, except for the northwestern third, was legally purchased land. Unfortunately, through a series of broken treaties and failed war attempts, the native people there would eventually withdraw their presence. Yet another sad commentary on how quickly something that started so good turned so bad in a matter of a few years. The result was that side-by-side living from the two groups was still not possible, and most of the Native Americans relocated westward. As most people who have visited present-day Pennsylvania, it was well known that Germans held a large presence there, which is directly left over from the colonial settlements. However, it is also worth noting that during this time, a large population of Africans and Scottish Irishmen were part of the colonization. Gaelic bagpipes, anyone? The settling of Pennsylvania was often described as riddled with fiery political unrest, which would aptly prepare them for the coming revolution. In England, Penn wrote the first frame of government, making a more permanent move for the establishment of Pennsylvania. This was his suggested constitution for the beginning foundation. However, there was a natural conflict within the popular elements of the government. As a result of an English revolution of sorts, King James was overthrown, and from 1692 to 1694, Penn was no longer the privileged holder. Eventually, a lawyer for England would bring a revised constitution and restore some order and peace, making Penn's earlier assurances of religious liberty more permanent. Although the beginning of Pennsylvania was quite an emotional roller coaster, eventually it would settle quite nicely and become one of the globally known hallmarks of liberty, with the housing of the Liberty Bell and delicious Hershey's chocolate. What could be better? And now we swiftly travel through to our next colony, the Peach State of Georgia. In the 1730s, England set up its final colony in North America. James Oglethorpe, an ex-army officer who was committed to helping the poor and indentured people of London, suggested moving to America. He chose the large state of Georgia named for a new king of England, King George II. Oglethorpe's military experience came into play here, as his intention was to create a defensive border to the ever-increasingly pesky neighbor, South Carolina. This Carolina was growing into a crucial colony. After receiving funding from England, King George commissioned a charter in June of 1732. Trustees were given the powers of incorporation, including, but not limited to, local governing body elections, issuing land grants, and enacting and regulating their own autonomous regulatory laws and taxes. True to Oglethorpe's original intentions, they also placed a 500-acre limit on individual land ownership. People who received any sort of funding and were not owners of their land could not sell or borrow money against the land holdings. The wisdom of the trustees wanted to avoid what was happening in South Carolina, which had extreme large plots of land ownership called plantations and wide gaps between the very rich and the very poor, like good parents trying to divvy out the fair treatment between all of their kids. Some interesting results were lack of representation in the Grand Assembly, though every other mainland colony had one. All land plots were compact and smaller than their neighbors' plots. Alcohol, specifically rum, was forbidden, and slavery was prohibited because they believed it would encourage English and Christian people to more readily establish their homes and families there. Mama and Papa Trustee. The first year was fairly peaceful for the fledgling Georgian colony. As in most settlement patterns, European colonists began to prepare the land for agriculture and permanent housing living. The first wave of settlers began to realize they were actually working for themselves on their own. Oglethorpe also played a major role on site. He began trading and negotiating treaties with local Indian tribes, especially the Upper Creek Muskegon dialect-speaking tribe who would eventually migrate westward to Oklahoma and the northern parts of Florida. Understanding the ins and outs of war from his past career, he thought it was prudent to reach out in a general, peaceful, and economic understanding between these two peoples and the settlers if Georgia was to remain a relatively harmonious settlement. In addition to living in amity, Indian trade was also an important part of the economic survival and growth. Unfortunately, the harmony did not last. Mostly, Mama and Papa Trustee were to blame. The restrictions were too harsh, tight, and too many. The unrestful children were often from other colonies who had experienced a different kind of looser parenting, especially in prosperous South Carolina. In due course of time, the trustees slowly started relinquishing their parenting grip on the Georgian settlers, but the change ultimately would turn toward a darker side as Oglethorpe's wishes for a peaceful and harmonious settlement started being revoked under a new charter, and Georgia would ultimately become known for its plantations and slavery, causing Oglethorpe to quit the colony. Though the beginning of U.S. colonization was wrought with many failures, ugly legacies, and some of the hardest of adversities, newly established North America would find its place in rich history, and in 1776, the famous independence would be conclusively proven to grow into what is now worldly known as a mega superpower, and Liber-tea is privileged to bring this to you. Like, subscribe, comment, and share these videos. Engage with your family, friends, and online neighbors to create a well-informed and connecting community that breaks through all land, cultural, economic, and status borders. We believe our forefathers would have wanted it this way.